This food is covered in mold.
Then do not eat it. Get out of my seat now! Move or you removed.
Check Your employment ends effective immediately.
I did not know who he was.
You should not have needed to.
The first thing Jordan Carter heard was not a greeting. It was a sharp voice behind him. You need to get out of that seat. The words cut through the quiet first-class cabins of Skybridge Airways Flight 417. A few passengers looked up from their phones. One man lowered his newspaper. Somewhere near the front galley, a coffee pot clicked into place. Jordan turned slowly. A woman in her late 50s stood in the aisle, one hand gripping the handle of a cream leather handbag. Her silver blonde hair was perfectly shaped. A diamond bracelet caught the overhead light as she pointed toward the aisle. "You are sitting in my seat," she said. Jordan glanced at the small metal plate beside the window. Seat 2A. Then he looked at the boarding pass resting in his hand. Seat 2A. "I believe there may be a misunderstanding," he said. "My boarding pass shows this seat." The woman did not look at the ticket. She looked at him, not his face exactly. His clothes, his hands, his dark skin, his simple navy jacket with no visible designer label, the small carry-on bag at his feet. Her mouth tightened. "I have flown this route for years," she said. "I always sit here." Jordan studied her for a moment. He had learned long ago that some people spoke with certainty when what they really had was expectation. "I understand," he said, "but today, this seat was assigned to me." The woman gave a short, disbelieving laugh. Around them, the cabin remained bright and polished. Cream-colored seats, brushed metal fixtures, soft music playing through hidden speakers. Outside the oval window, ground crews moved under the pale morning sky at Washington Dulles International Airport. Everything looked calm. Nothing felt calm. A flight attendant stepped out of the galley. Lauren Mitchell was 41, experienced, composed, and used to solving problems before they delayed departure. She approached with a practiced smile, but her eyes went first to the standing woman. "Is everything all right, ma'am?" The woman turned immediately. "No, it is not. This man is in my seat." Lauren looked at Jordan. "Sir, may I see your boarding pass?" Jordan handed it to her. She glanced at it for less than a second. Then she looked toward the woman. "And yours, Mom?" The woman opened her handbag, moved several items around, and sighed loudly. "I do not have it in my hand right now, but this is my seat. The gate agent knows me." Lauren shifted her weight. Jordan noticed the change. It was small, a tightening in her shoulders, a decision forming before the facts had arrived. "Sir," she said, "perhaps you were reassigned during boarding." "I was not. It happens sometimes." "Then the system should show it," Jordan replied. "Please check." The woman folded her arms. "This is unbelievable." Jordan felt the attention in the cabin grow heavier. A couple across the aisle watched without pretending not to. An older man near the bulkhead frowned at Nigel as though his calmness itself were suspicious. Lauren handed the boarding pass back. "Sir, there are open seats in the business cabin. We may be able to move you there until we sort this out." Jordan looked at her carefully. "You want to move me before checking whether she has a valid claim to this seat?" Lauren lowered her voice. "I am trying to avoid a disruption." "There is no disruption," Jordan said. "I am seated in the seat printed on my ticket." The woman stepped closer. "He is being difficult on purpose." Jordan inhaled slowly. He had sat in boardrooms where billions of dollars depended on quieter choices than this one. He had negotiated with regulators, labor leaders, and investors who mistook patience for weakness. But this was different. Here, no one knew his name. No one knew he was the founder and chief executive of Carter Dynamics, one of the largest transportation technology firms in the country. No one knew that Skybridge Airways had spent the last 8 months pursuing a major systems contract with his company. And Jordan had no intention of telling them, not yet, because respect that appeared only after a title was revealed was not respect at all. Lauren touched the edge of the seat. "Sir, I am asking you to cooperate." And I am asking you to verify the reservation, Jordan said. His voice remained even, but something in the cabin changed. The words landed cleanly. Several passengers looked toward Lauren now. The woman scoffed. B, why are we wasting time? Just moving. B. Jordan turned to her. Mom, you have not shown a boarding pass. Her cheeks flushed. I do not need to explain myself to you, no, Jordan said. But you do need a valid seat assignment. For one brief second, the woman had no answer. Lauren stepped between them. That is enough. Her tone was sharper now. Jordan looked up at her. Enough of what? Of escalating the situation. The accusation hung in the air. B. Jordan had not raised his voice. He had not stood. He had not insulted anyone. Yet somehow, the tension had been placed around his shoulders, like a coat he had chosen to wear. He felt an old ache rise in his chest. Not surprise, something worse, recognition. The quiet knowledge that this had happened before to other people. At hotel desks, in hospital waiting rooms, at bank counters. In neighborhoods where belonging was judged before proof was considered. He looked toward the window. A fuel truck rolled beneath the wing. The aircraft vibrated faintly as the auxiliary power unit hummed. Then he faced Lauren again. Please check the system, he said. That is all I am asking. Lauren pressed her lips together. The woman behind her smiled faintly, as if the matter had already been decided. Lauren reached for the phone mounted near the galley. I'm calling the cabin service manager, she said. If you continue refusing instructions, you may be removed from the flight. The cabin went still. Jordan held her gaze. He understood exactly what was happening now. This was no longer about a seat. It was about whose word carried weight, whose comfort mattered, and who was expected to surrender quietly so everyone else could keep pretending the system was fair. Jordan placed his boarding pass on the armrest where everyone could see it. Then he sat back. Go ahead, he said. Call your manager. Lauren lifted the phone. The woman smiled, and Jordan, still calm, realized they had just made a mistake far larger than any of them understood. Lauren spoke into the phone without taking her eyes off Jordan. Michael, I need you in first class. We have a passenger refusing to follow instructions. Jordan heard every word. So did the people around him. He remained seated, one hand resting beside his boarding pass. His breathing was slow, controlled, but beneath that calm surface, anger moved through him like a steady current. Not because someone had questioned a seat assignment. Mistakes happened. What disturbed him was how quickly the mistake had become an accusation. Evelyn Whitmore stood in the aisle with her handbag pressed against her side. She watched Lauren hang up the phone, then glanced at Jordan with the quiet satisfaction of someone who believed authority had already chosen her side. This should never have taken this long, she said. Lauren gave her a reassuring nod. Shortly. We will have it resolved shortly. Jordan looked between them. Resolved for whom? Lauren turned. Excuse me? You have not checked the reservation, Jordan said. You have not seen her boarding pass. Yet you have already told your manager that I am refusing instructions. You are refusing to move from my assigned seat. A low murmur passed through the cabin. Lauren heard it. Her face tightened. She had worked for Skybridge for nearly 16 years. She knew how quickly a boarding delay could spread through an aircraft. One complaint became 5. 5 became 20. Then came missed connections, angry emails, and questions from supervisors. In her mind, moving Jordan was the fastest solution. That was the danger. She was no longer asking who was right. She was asking who would be easier to move. An elderly woman seated across the aisle leaned toward her husband. He has the ticket, she whispered. Her husband nodded, but said nothing. Jordan noticed. Silence could be understandable. People feared conflict. They feared being embarrassed. They feared becoming the next target. But silence also had weight. It allowed small injustices to grow larger. Footsteps sounded from the galley. Michael Brooks entered the cabin wearing a dark suit and a Skybridge identification badge clipped to his jacket. He was 48, broad-shouldered, and visibly irritated before anyone spoke to him. Lauren stepped toward him. The passenger in 2A refuses to relocate, she said quietly. We have a seat dispute, and he is escalating. Michael looked at Jordan, then at Evelyn. He recognized her immediately. Mrs. Whitmore, he said. I am sorry for the inconvenience. Evelyn lifted her chin. I've been standing here while he argues with your employee. Michael turned back to Jordan. Sir, I am Michael Brooks, the cabin service manager. I need you to move to the business cabin so we can complete boarding. Jordan held up his boarding pass. Have you checked this? Michael did not take it. Lauren already explained the situation. She explained her conclusion, Jordan said. She did not verify the facts. Michael exhaled through his nose. Sir, we are not going to debate this in the aisle. Then check the system. We can do that after you move. No. The word was calm. It was also final. Michael stared at him. Jordan could see the calculation happening behind the manager's eyes. A crowded aircraft. A prominent customer, a black man refusing to yield. A simple narrative already taking shape. Michael lowered his voice. You need to understand that refusing a crew instruction can lead to removal from the aircraft. Jordan looked directly at him. A crew instruction must still have a legitimate safety or operational purpose. You are asking me to surrender a seat I purchased because another passenger claims she prefers it. Michael's jaw hardened. This is not about preference. Then show me her pass. Evelyn stepped forward. I told you, I cannot find it at the moment. Michael turned to her. Do you remember your assigned seat? Of course. 2A. Her answer came too fast. Jordan caught it. So did the elderly woman across the aisle. Lauren looked toward Evelyn's handbag. Perhaps it is in your mobile wallet. My phone is nearly dead, Evelyn replied. Michael gave a quick nod, accepting the excuse as though it were proof. Jordan felt something cold settle inside him. Every missing piece in Evelyn's story was being treated with patience. Every clear fact in his was being treated as resistance. A younger flight attendant named Rachel Kim stood near the galley curtain. She had watched the exchange from the beginning. Her fingers tightened around the passenger manifest in her hand. She knew the seat list was right there. She also knew Lauren outranked her. Rachel took one step forward. Lauren, she said softly, I can check the manifest. Lauren turned sharply. We are handling it. It will only take a moment. Michael looked at Rachel. Is boarding complete? Not yet. Then return to the rear cabin and assist there. Rachel hesitated. Her eyes met Jordan's. That's less than a second. He did not ask her to speak. That made the moment harder. She lowered her gaze and walked away. Jordan watched her disappear behind the curtain. He understood her fear. Speaking up could cost her assignments, promotions, even her reputation among the crew. Still, fear did not erase responsibility. Michael stepped closer. Sir, this is your final opportunity to cooperate voluntarily. Jordan remained seated. And this is your final opportunity to check the reservation before turning a routine seat dispute into something much more serious. The cabin seemed to shrink around them. The overhead vents whispered. A suitcase wheel rattled in the aisle behind Michael. Someone near the front raised a phone, not openly, but enough to record. Evelyn noticed and lowered her voice. Can we please stop giving this man attention? Jordan turned toward her. You believe asking for verification is seeking attention? I believe decent people do not hold up an entire flight over a chair. Jordan nodded slowly. Then perhaps you should take the seat assigned to you. Her face changed. The smile vanished. How dare you speak to me like that? I spoke to you directly. I did not insult you. Michael raised one hand. Enough. Again, the command was aimed at Jordan, not Evelyn. Jordan looked at Michael with a sadness that surprised even him. He had seen this pattern in corporate investigations, in hiring rooms, in customer service reports. The person with less assumed status was expected to remain perfectly calm while everyone else was permitted frustration, impatience, and contempt. One raised eyebrow could be called aggression. One refusal could be called a threat. Michael reached for the cabin phone. I'm contacting the captain and airport operations. Jordan leaned back in his seat. Please do. Michael paused. You may be escorted off this aircraft. I understand. And you could be denied travel. I understand that too. Michael studied him, unsettled by the absence of fear. B. Jordan picked up his boarding pass and placed it carefully in Michael's open line of sight. B. Before you make that call, he said, I suggest you read the name printed on this ticket and preserve every recording connected to this flight. Michael glanced down. Jordan Carter. The name meant nothing to him. Not yet, B. He lifted the phone. Behind him, Rachel stopped at the galley computer. Her hands trembled as she entered the flight number and opened the seat assignment screen. A few seconds later, the color drained from her face. Seat 2A belonged to Jordan Carter. Evelyn Whitmore was assigned to seat 3C. Rachel looked toward the cabin. Michael was already speaking to airport operations, and the mistake was becoming something no quiet apology could erase. Rachel stared at the screen for 1 second too long. Then she moved. Michael, wait. Her voice cut across the cabin just as he finished giving airport operations Jordan's seat numbers. Michael turned with the phone still pressed to his ear. What is it? Rachel held the printed manifest in both hands. The paper trembled slightly. Seat 2A is assigned to Mr. Carter. The words landed hard. Lauren looked at Rachel. Michael lowered the phone. Evelyn did not move. For a moment, no one spoke. The cabin seemed to hold its breath. Michael reached for the manifest. Let me see that. Rachel handed it to him. His eyes moved down the page. Once. Then again. Jordan Carter, seat 2A. Evelyn Whitmore, seat 3C. The truth was simple, clean, impossible to misunderstand. Yet Michael's first expression was not relief. It was irritation. Why was this not checked earlier? Rachel looked at Lauren. Lauren's face tightened. I asked him to move temporarily while we sorted it out. Jordan watched the blame begin to shift, not toward the decision, toward the process, toward the person with the least authority. Rachel swallowed. I offered to check the manifest. Lauren gave her a warning look. This is not the time. Jordan spoke quietly. Actually, it is exactly the time. Michael looked at him. Sir, we have confirmed your seat assignment. Jordan waited. Michael cleared his throat. There appears to have been a misunderstanding. A misunderstanding. The phrase moved through the cabin like smoke. Safe, vague, weightless. It did not name who had been doubted. It did not name who had been threatened. It did not name who had been believed without evidence. Jordan looked at Evelyn. Your assigned seat is 3C. Evelyn stared at Michael. That cannot be right. Michael held out the manifest. It is what the system shows. I was told at the lounge that I could have my usual seat. By whom? Jordan asked. Evelyn ignored him. Lauren stepped closer to her. Mrs. Whitmore, perhaps the lounge agent meant they would note your preference for a future flight. No, she said, this flight. Do you know her team? Rachel asked. Evelyn's eyes snapped toward her. I do not keep track of every employee who helps me. The elderly woman across the aisle let out a slow breath. Her husband folded his newspaper and placed it on his lap. Now that the facts were visible, the room began to change. Passengers who had watched Jordan with suspicion looked away. Others stared at Lauren and Michael, but Jordan felt no victory, only exhaustion. Being proven right did not erase what had already happened. Michael glanced toward the front door. Boarding had slowed. A gate agent stood outside, watching through the open entrance. He lowered his voice. Mrs. Whitmore, we need you to take your assigned seat so we can depart. Evelyn planted her feet. I paid more than enough for this ticket. I am not sitting in the aisle seat. 3C is a first-class aisle seat, Rachel said. I know what it is. Her voice cracked through the cabin. Several passengers turned fully now. Evelyn looked at Jordan again. He could take 3C. It is only one row back. Jordan's expression did not change. You have just spent several minutes insisting that assigned seats must be respected. That was different. How? She opened her mouth. Nothing came out. Michael stepped between them. Mrs. Whitmore, please move to 3C. Her face flushed. You were ready to remove him 5 minutes ago. Michael's shoulders stiffened. The reservation has now been verified, and suddenly he is untouchable? Jordan heard the word. Untouchable. Not correct. Not entitled to the seat. Untouchable. As if fairness were a special protection instead of the minimum anyone deserved. Lauren reached for Evelyn's bag. I can help you get settled. Evelyn pulled it away. Do not touch my things. The tension rose again, fast, sharper than before. A phone camera near the bulkhead was now clearly visible. The passenger holding it was a retired school principal named Harold Green. He had remained silent because he hated public scenes. But he had taught history for 37 years, and he knew how easily unfair treatment disappeared when no one documented it. Michael noticed the phone. Sir, recording crew members may interfere with operations. Harold kept the camera steady. I am sitting quietly in my seat. I am asking you to stop. Are you giving me a safety instruction? Harold asked. Or are you asking because this looks bad? Michael's jaw tightened. Jordan watched the manager make the same mistake again. He saw questions as challenges. He saw witnesses as threats. He saw authority as something to defend, even when it had been used carelessly. The gate agent entered the cabin. Her name was Denise Parker. She was in her early 50s, with reading glasses hanging from a silver chain. What is the status? She asked. Michael handed her the manifest. Seat dispute. We confirm Mr. Carter is in the correct seat. Denise looked at Jordan, then at Evelyn. Mrs. Whitmore, your boarding pass shows 3C. You have my boarding pass? It was scanned at the gate. The seat assignment is in the system. Evelyn's confidence finally broke. Not completely, but enough. Her eyes moved across the cabin. She saw the phones, the faces. The passengers no longer looking at Jordan. They were looking at her. This is humiliating, she whispered. Jordan felt the strange pull of compassion. Humiliation could make people cruel. It could also make them honest. He spoke gently. Then let it end here. Take your seat, No one needs to make this worse. Evelyn looked at him. For the first time, he saw uncertainty rather than contempt. But Lauren spoke before Evelyn could answer. Mr. Carter, please allow us to handle the passenger. Jordan turned toward her. You did handle it. Lauren flinched. Michael stepped closer. Sir, we have corrected the seating issue. I need you to stop commenting so we can restore order. Jordan stared at him. Restore order, not trust, not dignity. Order. The cabin door remained open. The gate agent stood still. Rachel looked down at the floor, ashamed of how long she had waited to act. Then two uniformed airport police officers appeared at the entrance. Officer Kevin Turner walked first. Officer Daniel Harris followed. Michael saw them and exhaled with relief. Jordan did not. Kevin scanned the cabin. Who is the disruptive passenger? Michael pointed towards seat. 2A Jordan slowly looked up. The facts had been verified. The seat was his. The lie had been exposed. And still, the hand pointed at him. Officer Kevin Turner followed Michael's pointing hand and saw a black man seated by the window. That single image reached him before the facts did. Jordan noticed it in Kevin's face, the quick narrowing of the eyes, the slight shift of his shoulders, the silent preparation for resistance. Officer Daniel Harris remained near the cabin door. Younger than Kevin, he scanned the aisle, the passengers, open phones, and the boarding pass resting beside in Jordan's hand. Kevin stepped forward. Sir, I need you to stand up and come with us. Jordan did not move, sigh. Before I do anything, I would like to be. Michael answered from behind the officer. He has repeatedly refused crew instructions and disrupted boarding. Rachel looked up sharply. That is not what happened. Lauren turned toward her. Rachel, stop, But Rachel had already crossed the line that fear had drawn for her. She held the manifest against her chest. Mr. Carter is seated in his assigned seat. Mrs. Whitmore took it. He asked us to verify the reservation, and we did not check soon enough. Kevin looked at Michael. Is that true? Michael's face hardened. The seat dispute has been resolved. His continued refusal to cooperate is now the issue. Jordan felt the logic close around him. First, he had been wrong for sitting there. Then, when the seat was proven to be his, he became wrong for objecting to how he had been treated. The accusation had changed. The target had not. Daniel stepped farther into the cabin. What specific instruction is he refusing now? Michael paused. He is interfering with the crew's ability to restore order. Jordan looked at Daniel. I am sitting in my assigned seat. I have not threatened anyone. I have not touched anyone. I have not raised my voice. Harold Green spoke from across the aisle. That is true. Kevin turned toward him. Sir, please stay out of this. Harold lowered his phone slightly, but not completely. I watched the entire thing. He was calmer than anyone else here. Did he? Evelyn shifted near seat 3C. Her handbag remained clutched against her body. She no longer looked proud. She looked trapped. Kevin focused on Jordan again. Sir, we can discuss this outside. Stand up, please. Jordan met his eyes. Am I being detained? Kevin hesitated. You are being asked to leave the aircraft. By the airline or by law enforcement? Michael stepped closer. By the airline. Jordan turned to Denise, the gate agent. Has my carriage been canceled? Denise looked uncomfortable. Not that I am aware of. Michael glared at her. We are trying to manage an operational situation. Jordan's voice stayed even. Then someone needs to state clearly what I have done. No one answered. The cabin filled with small sounds. Air moving through the vents. A buckle striking a plastic armrest. A distant announcement echoing from the terminal. Kevin's hand rested near his belt. Jordan saw it. So did Daniel. Daniel stepped closer to his partner and spoke quietly. We need to slow this down. Kevin did not look at him. We have a crew requesting removal. And we have conflicting accounts, Daniel said. The words were simple, but they changed the room. Kevin's jaws tightened. Jordan understood the pressure on both officers. Airlines had broad authority to remove passengers before departure. Police were often called to prevent situations from becoming dangerous. But authority required judgment. A uniform did not remove the duty to ask questions. Daniel looked at Rachel. Tell me exactly what happened. Rachel took a breath. Mrs. Whitmore claimed seat 2A. Mr. Carter showed a boarding papers for 2A. Mrs. Whitmore could not produce hers. Mr. Carter asked us to check the system. We asked him to move before checking. When I checked, the system showed he was correct. Did he threaten anyone? No. Did he block the aisle? No. Did he refuse a safety instruction? No. Rachel glanced at Lauren. No. Lauren's face flushed. He refused a direct crew instruction. Daniel looked at her. What was the instruction? To move to business class. Why? To resolve the dispute. But the seat belonged to him. Lauren opened her mouth, then closed it. Kevin looked around the cabin. The certainty he had carried inside was weakening. Michael saw it and stepped forward. Officer, we cannot allow passengers to challenge crew authority in front of the entire cabin. Jordan's expression changed. Not anger, clarity. There it is, he said. Michael turned. What? This is no longer about safety. It is about being questioned. Michael pointed toward him. That tone is exactly the problem. Daniel looked at Jordan. Sir, I need you to remain calm. I am calm. He was. That fact made Michael's accusation sound even thinner. Evelyn suddenly spoke. He did not cause the original problem. Every face turned toward her. Her voice was quieter now. I was sitting in his seat. Michael stared at her. Mrs. Whitmore, you do not need to involve yourself. I am already involved. She looked at Jordan, but could not hold his gaze. I assumed the lounge had changed it for me. When he would not move, I became angry. The admission did not excuse what she had done, but it broke something open. Kevin removed his hands from his belt. Daniel exhaled. Jordan watched Evelyn carefully. Shame had finally reached her, not as punishment, but as recognition. That mattered. People could not repair what they refused to name. Kevin turned to Michael. Based on what I have heard, I do not have grounds to detain this passenger. Michael's face went still. We are not asking you to detain him. We are asking you to remove him. Kevin glanced at Daniel. Daniel shook his head once. Kevin lowered his voice. That is a decision your company may make, but we will not treat him as a criminal without a lawful reason. Jordan felt the pressure in the cabin shift again. For the first time, authority had not simply reinforced authority. It had questioned it. Michael looked toward the cockpit door. Then I will speak to the captain. He turned sharply and walked forward. Lauren followed him. The officers remained in the aisle. Rachel stood near the galley, pale but steady. Jordan looked at her. Thank you for done the truth. Her eyes filled. I should have done it sooner, so sticks to me. Maybe, Jordan said, but you did it when it still mattered. The words struck her harder than criticism would have. Beyond the cockpit door, Michael began speaking to Captain David Collins. His voice was low, urgent, selective. Jordan could not hear every word, but he heard enough. Non-compliant passenger, crew authority, possible delay, no mention of the wrong seat, no mention of the verified boarding pass, no mention of Evelyn's admission. Jordan reached slowly into his jacket. Kevin tensed for half a second. Jordan removed a business card and held it between two fingers. "Please give this to the captain," he said. Kevin took it. The card was plain white. No gold lettering. No grand title across the front. Jordan Carter, founder and chief executive officer. Carter Dynamics. Daniel read it over Kevin's shoulder. His eyes lifted. Carter Dynamics was not just another technology company. It managed transportation security systems, airport logistics software, and passenger data infrastructure across the country. Skybridge Airways was currently bidding for one of its largest contracts. Kevin looked at Jordan. "You are that, Jordan Carter." Jordan's voice remained quiet. "I am the same man I was before you read the card." Kevin held his gaze, and for the first time that morning, he understood the full weight of what had happened. The truth had been present from the beginning. Only Jordan's status had been hidden. Kevin carried the business card toward the cockpit as though it had suddenly become evidence. Michael stood outside the closed door, speaking in a low voice to Captain David Collins through the interphone. Lauren remained beside him, arms folded tightly across her chest. Her face had lost its earlier confidence. Kevin stopped a few feet away. "Captain needs to see this." Michael glanced at the card. "What is it?" Kevin did not answer him. He pressed the call button and waited. The cockpit door opened a few inches. Captain Collins appeared in the narrow gap. He was 58, with gray at his temples and the tired eyes of a man who had spent decades making decisions under pressure. Kevin handed him the card. The captain read it once, then again. His expression changed. Carter Dynamics had been part of senior leadership conversations for months. The company supplied airport logistics systems across the country. Skybridge was competing for a major contract that could affect hundreds of routes and thousands of employees. Captain Collins looked past Kevin towards seat 2A. Jordan sat by the window, still composed, while half the cabin watched him. Michael leaned closer. His position should not affect how we handle a disruptive passenger. Captain Collins turned slowly. What exactly did he do? Michael hesitated. He refused repeated crew instructions. What instructions? To relocate while we resolved a seat dispute. Was the seat his? Michael's jaw tightened. Yes. Did he threaten anyone? No. Did he block the aisle? No. Did he use abusive language? Not directly. The captain's eyes narrowed. What does that mean? Michael lowered his voice. He challenged our authority in front of the cabin. Captain Collins looked at Lauren. Is that accurate? Lauren shifted her weight. He questioned every instruction and refused to cooperate. Was the instruction related to safety? She did not answer. The silence said enough. Captain Collins stepped out and closed the cockpit door behind him. He looked toward Denise, Rachel, and the two officers. I want clear statements, one at a time. No conclusions, only what happened. Michael looked uneasy. Captain, we are already delayed. Then we will be delayed long enough to understand why police are standing in my first-class cabin. His voice was calm, but it ended the argument. Rachel spoke first. She described the boarding pass, Evelyn's claim, Jordan's repeated requests to check the system, Lauren's instruction to move, Michael's arrival, the verified manifest, the continued threat of removal. She did not exaggerate. She did not need to. Denise confirmed the seat assignments. Officer Sir Daniel Harris explained that Jordan had remained seated and calm. Kevin confirmed there was no basis for detention. Harold Green raised his phone. I recorded most of it. Michael turned sharply. You were told to stop recording. Harold looked at the captain. I was sitting in my seat. I did not interfere with anyone. Captain Collins held out his hand. May I see it? Harold gave him the phone. The cabin fell quiet as the captain watched the video. Jordan could not scream. but he could hear the voices. You need to get out of that seat. We may be able to move you. He is being difficult on purpose. If you continue refusing instructions, you may be removed. B. The captain's face hardened with each sentence. Then came Jordan's voice. Please check the system. That is all I am asking. The recording ended. Captain Collins handed the phone back. Thank you. Evelyn stood near seat 3C, staring at the carpet. Her shoulders had dropped. The woman who had entered the cabin with complete certainty now looks smaller. Captain Collins faced her. Mrs. Whitmore, B, did you have confirmation that seat 2A had been reassigned to you? Evelyn swallowed. No written confirmation. B, did anyone at the gate tell you it was yours? Not at the gate. Did you know your boarding pass showed 3C? She looked toward Jordan. I saw it, she admitted. I thought they had made a mistake. The answer struck the cabin harder than anyone expected. Lauren stared at her. You knew? Evelyn's eyes filled with shame. I believed they would move him. Airlines move people all the time. Jordan felt those words settle deep inside him. They would move him. B. Not because of policy. Because she believed he was movable. A person whose time, dignity, and place mattered less. Captain Collins closed his eyes for a brief moment. When he opened them, his decision had been made. B. Mrs. Whitmore, you will return to your assigned seat immediately. Whether you remain on this flight will be decided by airport operations. Evelyn nodded faintly. Then the captain turned to Michael and Lauren. B. You will both step off the aircraft and report to the station manager. B. Michael's face went pale. Captain, that is unnecessary. It is necessary. We can document this after departure? No. The word was quiet. Final. Captain Collins looked directly at him. B. You gave law enforcement a misleading account after learning the passenger was correctly seated. You continued to identify him as the problem when the evidence showed otherwise. Michael glanced at Jordan. B. This is because of who he is. Jordan spoke before the captain could answer. No. Every face turned toward him. B. Jordan rose from his seat for the first time. He was tall, but he did not use his height to dominate the space. He stood with one hand resting lightly on the seat back. This should have been corrected before anyone knew who I was, he said. My job title is not the reason I deserve to be believed. The boarding pass was enough. Michael looked away. Jordan's voice grew quieter. B. There are people who cannot hand over a business card that makes the room change. They still deserve the same care, the same questions, the same restraint. Rachel's eyes filled again. Several passengers lowered their heads. B. Even Kevin looked shaken. Captain Collins nodded once. You are right. For a few seconds, the anger in the cabin slowed into something deeper. Recognition. The painful kind. The kind that could become change. B. If people were brave enough not to look away. B. Then a ground operations supervisor entered the aircraft with 2 additional employees. Michael and Lauren were asked to leave. Evelyn moved silently into seat 3C. No one applauded. Jordan was grateful for that. B. This was not a victory scene. It was a failure being exposed. As Lauren passed seat 2A, she stopped. Her lips parted, but no words came. Jordan saw fear in her eyes. Fear for her job. Fear of judgment. B. Fear of becoming the person everyone remembered from the recording. B. He did not excuse what she had done, but he did not humiliate her either. Tell the truth when they ask, he said. All of it. That is where repair starts. Lauren looked at him for a long moment, then she nodded and walked off the plane. Captain Collins remained in the aisle. Mr. Carter, Skybridge owes you an apology. Jordan looked around the cabin. An apology is a beginning. The captain understood, not an ending. B. Outside, the boarding bridge remained connected. Operations calls were already moving through the airport. Statements were being requested. Video was being preserved. The flight would not leave on time. And for the first time that morning, the delay was not being blamed on Jordan. It was being traced back to the decisions that had created it. The station manager arrived 10 minutes later, and with a legal pad in the other, and a company phone in the other. Her name was Diane Parker. She was 53, calm under pressure. and experienced enough to know when a delay was no longer just a delay. She stepped into the cabin, looked at the police officers, the ground staff, and the passengers holding phones. Then she looked at Jordan. "Mr. Carter, may I speak with you privately?" On the jet bridge, Jordan remained beside seat 2A. "Will the conversation be Jordy? We can speak here. It can be, then we can speak here." E. A few passengers shifted in their seats. Diane understood the message. Jordan would not allow the company to move the problem out of public view and replace it with a cleaner version later. She nodded. "That is fair." Captain Collins stood near the cockpit while a replacement flight attendant entered the aircraft. The new crew member began checking the cabin, but no one was ready to pretend the morning had returned to normal. Diane opened her notebook. "I've been told there was a seating dispute, followed by an improper request for removal." Jordan looked at her. "That description leaves him out several decisions." Diane held his gaze. "Then tell me what it leaves out." Jordan did not raise his voice. "A passenger claimed my seat without showing proof. Your employees accepted her word over my boarding pass. They asked me to move before checking the system. When the system confirmed I was correct, they continued to describe me as disruptive. Then they gave police an account that could have led to my detention." Diane wrote slowly. Evelyn stared at the window from seat 3C. Every sentence forced her to hear the event without the protection of her own excuses. Diane looked toward Rachel. "Is that accurate?" Rachel nodded. "Yes." "And the recording?" Harold lifted his phone. "I have most of it." Diane asked to send a copy to a secure company address. Harold agreed, but only after Officer Daniel Harris advised him to keep the original file. That detail did not escape Jordan. "Preserve the original," Daniel said. "Do not edit it." Diane nodded. "We will also preserve airport camera footage, gate records, crew communication, and the aircraft cabin system logs." Jordan watched her closely. "Including the call to airport operations?" "Including all calls related to the incident." "Good." Diane's phone vibrated. She glanced at the screen and her face changed. Jordan recognized the name before she turned it away. Thomas Reed, Senior Vice President of Operations at Skybridge Airways. Jordan had met him twice during his contract discussions. Thomas had been friendly, polished, and eager to speak about trust, innovation, and customer dignity. Words came easily in conference rooms. Their value was measured in places like this. Diane stepped toward the galley and answered, "Yes, sir." She listened. Her eyes moved toward Jordan. "Yes, it is him." Another pause. "No, he has not left the aircraft." Jordan could not hear Thomas, but he could imagine the questions. Was anyone hurt? Was the video online? Did Jordan intend to cancel the contract? The order of those questions would reveal more than the answers. Diane returned a minute later. "Mr. Carter, Senior leadership would like to speak with you immediately." Jordan sat down again. Senior leadership had the opportunity to build procedures that prevented this. "I will speak with them after the facts are secured." Diane drew a slow breath. "They want to apologize, I understand. And they are concerned about the impact this may have on your relationship with Skybridge." There it was, the contract. The hidden weight behind the sudden urgency. Jordan looked around the cabin. He saw Rachel standing near the galley, Kevin and Daniel near the door, Harold with his phone, Evelyn sitting rigidly in the wrong seat she had finally accepted. Then he looked back at Diane. "My relationship with Skybridge is not the central issue." Diane waited. "The issue is what happens to the next passenger who does not own a company your executives want business from." The words landed quietly. That made them stronger. Diane closed her notebook. "You are right." Jordan studied her face. She did not sound defensive. She sounded tired, not physically tired, morally tired. The kind that came from seeing a system fail in a familiar way. She glanced toward the cabin door. "My father was removed from a train in Georgia when I was a child," she said. "He had the correct ticket. Another passenger wanted the seat. The conductor told my father it would be easier if he moved." Jordan said nothing. The cabin became still. Diane's voice weakened for only a moment. "He moved because he had 3 children with him and did not want us to see him arrested." For years, I told myself things like that belonged to another time. She looked toward Rachel. They do not belong quieter language. Operational, conventions, passenger, managed, est order. Jordan felt some of the hardness in his chest loosen. Pain did not excuse the tallow failure. Pain, they'd be, but truth could open a door that policy alone could not. What will you do now? He asked. Diane straightened. Michael Brooks and Lauren Mitchell will remain off duty pending a formal investigation. Rachel will provide a protected statement. No employee involved will contact witnesses directly. All recordings and system data will be preserved. The officers will receive written confirmation that Skybridge is not requesting criminal action against you. Kevin looked toward Jordan. You should never have been placed in that position, he said. Jordan nodded once. Then Diane continued. Mrs. Whitmore will be removed from this flight. Evelyn turned sharply. Removed. Diane faced her. You knowingly occupied another passenger's assigned seat. You made false claims about authorization. Your actions contributed to a serious operational incident. Evelyn's face tightened. I admitted I was wrong. That matters, Diane said. But accountability still matters too. Evelyn looked at Jordan. For a second, anger returned. Then it collapsed. What do you want from me? She asked him. Jordan looked at her carefully. An honest answer. She waited. When you saw me sitting there, why did you believe I would be the one forced to move? Evelyn opened her mouth. No sound came. Her eyes shifted toward the floor. Because I thought they would believe me, she whispered. Why? Her breathing became uneven. Because people usually do. Jordan let the silence remain. Evelyn pressed her lips together. And because I looked at you and decided you did not belong there. The admission was ugly. It was also real. Rachel looked away, fighting tears. Harold lowered his phone. Diane remained still. Jordan felt no satisfaction, only the weight of how ordinary the answer was. That is the part you need to remember, he said. Not my name, not my company. The moment you decided a stranger belonged beneath you. Evelyn nodded slowly. Ground staff approached to escort her from the plane. Before leaving, she stopped beside Jordan. I am sorry. Jordan looked at her. I hope you become someone who understands why. She walked away without answering. Diane's phone vibrated again. This time she did not pick it up. She looked toward Captain Collins. The aircraft cannot depart with the investigation active. We need to deplane the passengers and secure the cabin. A wave of frustration moved through first class. Misconnections, changed plans, hours lost. Jordan heard the complaints beginning, but he also saw something else. Harold stood. This delay is not his fault, he said loudly. Do not place it on him. The elderly woman across the aisle nodded. He tried to prevent it. One by one, the cabin quieted. The passengers began gathering their belongings, not happily, but with a clearer understanding of what had happened. As Jordan reached for his carry-on, Diane stepped beside him. Mr. Carter, the executive team will ask what it takes to repair this. Jordan looked through the open aircraft door toward the terminal, beyond. Tell them not to ask how to repair their relationship with me. Then what should they ask? Jordan lifted his bag. Ask how many times this happened when no one important was watching. By noon, the conference room at Skybridge headquarters had filled with people who had not been on the aircraft. Lawyers, operations executives, human resources leaders, public relations staff, security directors. They sat around a polished table beneath soft recessed lights, watching Harold Green's recording on a wall screen. No one spoke when the video ended. The final frame showed Michael pointing toward Jordan as the police entered the cabin. Thomas Reed, the senior vice president of operations, removed his glasses and pressed 2 fingers against the bridge of his nose. Play it again, he said. The legal counsel beside him shook her head. We have all seen it 3 times. I want to understand the sequence. You understand the sequence, she replied. You are trying to find a version that is less damaging. Thomas looked at her. There was no less damaging version. The boarding data was clear. Jordan had been assigned seat 2A when he purchased the ticket. Evelyn had selected 3C. No lounge employee had changed in either seat. No system error had occurred. The failure had been human, then it had become procedural. Then institutional. Lauren had ignored the boarding pass. Michael had rejected verification. Both had continued to frame Jordan as disruptive after the facts were known. Airport police had been called with language that suggested a threat where none existed. Diane sat at the far end of the table with her notebook open. Rachel joined by video from a private office at the airport. Her face was pale, but her voice remained steady. Thomas leaned toward the screen. Why did you not check the manifest immediately? Rachel looked down. Lauren told me she was handling it. That does not answer the question. Rachel lifted her eyes. I was afraid of challenging her in front of passengers. Thomas glanced toward human resources. Rachel continued before he could respond. And I knew that if I contradicted a senior crew member during boarding, I could be reported for insubordination. I have seen it happen. The room changed. Human Resources Director Melissa Grant shifted in her chair. Do you have examples? Rachel hesitated. Yes. How many? At least 4 employees in the last 2 years. Thomas sat back. Names? Rachel gave them. Melissa wrote each one down. Diane watched the executives absorb the deeper problem. They had entered the room prepared to investigate one ugly incident. Now the edges were widening. This was not only about Lauren or Michael. It was about a culture where speed was rewarded more than fairness, where junior employees learned to stay quiet, where customer status could influence whose story was accepted, where phrases such as restoring order could conceal poor judgment. The legal counsel opened another file we reviewed, prior customer complaints involving seat disputes and removal threats. Thomas looked at her. How many? 28 in the last 18 months. The room went silent again. How many involved passengers of color? Diane asked. The attorney paused. 19. No one moved. Thomas looked toward the window. Far below, aircraft crossed the runway in slow lines, silver bodies shining in the afternoon sun. He had spent years defending Skybridge as a company built on service. He believed it. He had repeated it at conferences, investor meetings, and employee events. Now the numbers sat on the table like an accusation. Were the complaints investigated? He asked. Most were closed at the station level. On what grounds? Insufficient evidence, conflicting accounts, passenger noncompliance. Diane looked at him. The same language used today. Thomas did not answer. Across the city, Jordan sat in a quiet airport conference room with his general counsel, Rebecca Miles. She was 61, sharp, patient, and unimpressed by corporate apologies. She placed a printed document in front of him. Skybridge wants a confidential settlement discussion. Jordan read the first page. Full refund, travel credits, written apology, a charitable donation, a confidentiality clause. Rebecca watched his face. They are offering a significant amount, for silence, for resolution. Jordan looked at her. Those are not always the same thing. Rebecca nodded. She had expected that answer. His phone vibrated on the table. Messages had been arriving all morning. Board members, news producers, civil rights attorneys, business partners. Someone had posted part of Harold's recording online. The video was spreading. Jordan opened it. The footage was unsteady, but the moment was clear. Michael pointed. Police entered. Jordan remained seated. Comments appeared beneath it faster than he could read. Some people defended him. Some blamed him for not moving. Some asked why he had made such a big issue over a seat. Jordan closed the screen. Rebecca studied him. You do not have to carry every reaction. I know. But he also knew what would happen next. People would argue about his tone, his clothing, his expression of what should have surrendered first and complained later. The facts would become a debate. And that was how society often avoided the harder question. Why was dignity treated as negotiable for some people? A soft knock came at the door. Diane entered alone. She had removed her company jacket. Without it, she looked less like an official and more like a woman who had not slept. May I come in? Jordan gestured toward a chair. Diane sat across from him. The internal review has expanded. How far? We found similar complaints. B. Jordan's eyes narrowed. How many? Too many. B. That is not a number. 28 in 18 months. 19 involved passengers of color. Rebecca leaned forward. Were any employees disciplined? A few received coaching. No major action. B. Jordan looked at Diane for a long moment. So this was not the first warning. No. The room seemed colder. Outside the glass wall, travelers moved through the terminal, carrying coffee, luggage, and ordinary expectations. B. Most believed that if they followed the rules would protect them. Jordan knew better. B. Rules only protected people when institutions chose to enforce them fairly. Diane placed a folder on the table. Skybridge is prepared to suspend Michael and Lauren pending termination review. We are also reviewing prior complaints. Jordan did not touch the folder that addresses individuals. It is a start. It is the easiest start. Diane accepted the criticism. What would you consider meaningful? Jordan leaned back. B. Require employees to verify facts before ordering a passenger to move. Create an independent review process for removal complaints. Protect junior staff who challenge unsafe or discriminatory decisions. B. Track outcomes by race, age, disability, and complaint type. Make senior leaders review the patterns every quarter. Diane wrote quickly. Jordan continued. And stop using customer status as a substitute for credibility. B. She stopped writing. That one will be harder. Then it matters more. Diane closed the notebook. Thomas Reed wants to meet with you tonight. B. Jordan glanced at Rebecca. She gave a slight nod. I will meet him, Jordan said, but not to discuss travel credits. Diane stood. What should I tell him? Jordan looked through the glass toward the crowded terminal. B. Tell him the contract with Carter Dynamics is on hold. Diane's breath caught. That contract is worth hundreds of millions of dollars. I know. Thousands of employees could be affected. I know that too. Then why use it now? B. Jordan looked back at her. B. Because power means very little if it is only used to protect the person who has it. Diane stood still. Jordan's voice remained controlled. I am not canceling the contract to punish workers. I am pausing it until Skybridge proves that fairness is more than a statement on a website. Rebecca folded her hands. And if they refuse? Jordan looked at the untouched settlement papers. Then they will lose more than a contract. B. They will lose the chance to become better before the next person is harmed. Diane packed up the folder. For the first time since entering the room, she looked hopeful, not relieved. Hope demanded more work than relief, but it was real. As she reached the door, Jordan spoke again. Diane, she turned. Make sure Rachel is protected. I will. Not quietly, he said. Put it in writing. Diane nodded. When the door closed, Rebecca looked at Jordan. B. You know they expected you to ask for money. Jordan watched another aircraft pull away from the gate. Money can compensate for time, he said. It cannot repair a system. His phone vibrated again. This time, the message came from Thomas Reed. We are ready to do whatever is necessary. Jordan read it once. Then he placed the phone face down. The real test was no longer whether Skybridge regretted what had happened. B. The real test was what the company would change when regret became expensive. Thomas Reed arrived at the airport just after sunset. He entered the private conference room without an assistant, without a public relations team, and without the polished smile Jordan remembered from their earlier meetings. His tie was loose. His face looked drawn. Rebecca maintained seats beside Jordan. Diane stood near the wall with a closed notebook in her hand. Thomas placed a leather folder on the table. Mr. Carter, I want to begin by saying that what happened to you was unacceptable. Jordan looked at him. What part was unacceptable? Thomas paused. All of it. That answer is broad enough to protect everyone. Thomas pulled out a chair. Then let me be specific. Your valid boarding pass was ignored. Another passenger was believed without evidence. You were asked to surrender your seat for convenience. After the seat assignment was verified, you were still portrayed as disruptive. Law enforcement was called using an incomplete account. Jordan watched him carefully. And why did that happen? Thomas glanced at Diane. We are still investigating. Jordan leaned forward. You already know enough to answer. B. The air conditioner hummed above them. Beyond the glass wall, cleaning crews moved through the terminal under harsh white lights. Thomas folded his hands. B. It happened because several employees made poor decisions under pressure. Rebecca spoke for the first time. 28 similar complaints are not several employees making poor decisions. Thomas looked at her. B. The review is not complete, but the pattern is already visible, she said. Diane opened her notebook. B. 19 of the complaints involved passengers of color. 11 involved threats of removal after the original dispute had already been resolved. In 7 cases, B. Junior staff later reported that they felt unable to contradict the supervisor. Thomas looked down. B. Jordan felt the familiar frustration of watching a leader hear information he should have known long before the crisis reached him. How often do executives review passenger removal data? Jordan asked. Thomas did not answer immediately. Quarterly. By race? No. B. By whether the original crew account was accurate? No. By whether the passenger was later cleared? Not consistently. Jordan sat back. Then you were measuring incidents without measuring fairness. Thomas inhaled slowly. B. We believe station leadership was handling complaints appropriately. Belief is not oversight. No, the admission came quietly. Thomas opened the folder and pushed a document across the table. B. Skybridge is prepared to create an independent review panel, strengthen whistleblower protections, and require verification before any passenger is moved during a seat dispute. B. Jordan did not touch the paper. Who wrote this? Our legal and operations teams. How many frontline employees were consulted? Thomas hesitated. None yet. Then it is not a reform plan. It is a liability response. B. Diane lowered her eyes. Thomas looked tired now, but the tiredness no longer softened Jordan. People harmed by systems were often asked to feel sympathy for the executives who had to repair them. Jordan had sympathy. B. He simply refused to let it replace accountability. B. Thomas pressed his palms against the table. What do you want us to do? Jordan's voice remained level. Bring in flight attendants, gate agents, disability advocates, civil rights experts, B, and passengers who filed complaints. Review every removal case from the last 3 years. Publish the findings internally. B. Create a written standard requiring employees to separate safety instructions from customer service disputes. Thomas nodded slowly. And training? Training matters, Jordan said. B. But training without accountability becomes theater. Rebecca slid the proposed settlement aside. B. There must be an appeal process outside station management. There must also be consequences for false or misleading reports to law enforcement. Thomas looked at Jordan. Would Carter Dynamics help design the data system? Jordan held his gaze. You are asking the company you nearly lost to build the system that proves whether you deserved the contract. Yes, the honesty of the answer surprised him. Now Thomas continued. B. Our current reporting tools are fragmented. Complaints are stored separately from crew reports, security calls, and customer records. We cannot identify patterns quickly. You could have built that years ago. We should have. B. Jordan looked toward Diane. What happens to Rachel? Diane answered. She will receive written protection from retaliation. She has also been offered paid leave during the investigation. Jordan looked back at Thomas. B. And Lauren and Michael both remain suspended. Final decisions will follow formal interviews. B. Do not make them the entire story, Jordan said. Thomas frowned. They must be held accountable. Yes. But firing 2 people will allow the company to announce that the problem is gone. It is not gone. Thomas understood. B. Jordan continued. Michael learned that maintaining authority mattered more than correcting the truth. Lauren learned that moving the person with less assumed status was the fastest solution. B. Rachel learned that speaking honestly could threaten her career. Those lessons came from somewhere. No one spoke. B. The room felt smaller. Diane looked at Thomas. He is right. Thomas rubbed one hand across his forehead. The board will resist public disclosure. Jordan looked at him. Because of the legal risk? Because of the financial risk. B. The distinction matters. I know. Then tell them the greater risk is allowing the next incident to happen after the company knew exactly what was wrong. B. Thomas looked through the glass toward a Skybridge aircraft parked at the gate, its logo shone under the floodlights. B. For years, he had viewed the aircraft as assets, routes, schedules, and operating margins. Now he imagined hundreds of people stepping onto them every day, each carrying private fears. B. An elderly traveler worried about moving too slowly. A veteran with an invisible injury. A mother traveling alone. A black passenger wondering whether their one disagreement could become a police encounter. B. The airline did not simply transport bodies. It held people in a place where leaving was difficult and authority was concentrated. That required restraint. B. Thomas closed the folder. If we accept these conditions, will you release the contract hold? No. The answer came immediately. Thomas looked at him. Jordan continued, you will begin the work first, not announce it. B. Not promise it. Begin it. How long? 90 days for the initial review. 6 months for implementation, independent reporting throughout. Thomas glanced at Rebecca. Those timelines are aggressive. B. So was the threat to remove me. Silence. Short, sharp. Thomas nodded. Fair enough. Jordan looked at him. B. Do not call it fair. Call it necessary. Thomas reached for the document. I will take this to the board tonight. Jordan stood. Thomas rose as well. Before Jordan reached the door, Thomas spoke. Mr. Carter, B. May I ask you something personal? Jordan turned. Why did you remain so calm? The question held no accusation now, only uncertainty. Jordan thought of his father, who had once told him that anger was human. B. But some people would use it as permission not to hear him. B. He thought of every room where he had been required to prove both his right to be present and his right to react. I was angry, Jordan said. I simply knew that if I showed it, someone might use my anger to avoid facing theirs. Thomas looked down. Jordan opened the door. Calm should not have been the price of being treated like a human being, he added. Then he walked into the terminal. B. Behind him, Thomas remained beside the table, holding a reform proposal that suddenly looked too small. The company had spent the day asking how one incident could threaten a major contract. By nightfall, B. Its leaders were beginning to ask the more important question, how many people had been forced to stay calm because Skybridge had failed to listen? 3 months later, B. Rachel Kim stood at the front of a training room filled with senior flight attendants. The room was quiet, too quiet. B. On the screen behind her was a frozen image from the incident on Flight 417. Michael Brooks stood in the aisle with one arm extended. Jordan Carter sat in seat 2A. 2 police officers were visible near the door. Rachel held a small remote in her hand. This is the moment everything became dangerous, she said. A man in the second row shifted in his chair when the police arrived. Rachel looked at him. No, earlier. She pressed the remote. B. The image changed to Jordan holding up his boarding pass while Lauren Mitchell stood beside him. This was the moment, Rachel said. The evidence was available. We chose not to treat it as evidence. B. Several people looked down at their workbooks. Skybridge had spent the last 90 days reviewing complaint records, security calls, seat disputes, and passenger removals. The findings had reached every level of the company. B. The problem was larger than one flight. Some passengers had been removed after speaking too loudly. B. Others had been labeled uncooperative because they asked repeated questions. A few had physical disabilities that employees misunderstood as defiance. Again and again, the same pattern appeared. B. Someone in authority made an assumption. A second employee protected the first decision. The language became stronger. Then security arrived. Rachel clicked to the next slide. It displayed 4 words. B. Verify before you escalate. This is not about weakening crew authority, she said. It is about using authority correctly. B. At the back of the room, Diane Parker watched without speaking. Rachel had almost refused the training role. She feared being known forever as the failed to act sooner. Jordan had changed her mind during a private call. You cannot change the moment behind you, he had told her, but you can make it harder for someone else to repeat it. Those words had stayed with her now. She faced the room without lowering her eyes. B. If a passenger presents valid documentation, check it. If the issue is not related to safety, do not ascribe it as a safety threat. If a coworker raises a factual concern, listen before rank becomes more important than truth. A senior attendant named Carol Benson raised her hand. What happens when the passenger is rude? Rachel nodded. Rudeness is not the same as danger. What if they refuse a direct instruction? B. Ask what the instruction is protecting. Safety, access to the aisle, federal regulations, or the pride of the person giving it. The room went still. Carol leaned back. That question made people uncomfortable. It was supposed to. B. Across the country, similar training sessions were underway at Skybridge stations. Gate agents practiced pausing before calling supervisors. B. Managers reviewed recordings without knowing the passenger's race or loyalty status. Removal reports now required a specific description of behavior. B. Not vague phrases such as aggressive attitude or difficult passenger. The airline had also created an independent review office. Every removal request was logged. Every police call was examined. B. Patterns could no longer disappear tips inside separate departments. B. Thomas Reed presented the first public reparation report to the board that afternoon. The numbers were not flattering. Complaints had risen. One director stared at the chart. So the new system is making things worse? No, B. Thomas said, it is making things visible. The answer was not well received. Another director folded his arms. Visibility creates legal exposure. Hidden harm creates greater exposure, Thomas replied. B. He had changed since the night at the airport. Not completely. Real change rarely arrived that cleanly. B. He still worried about investors, contracts, and headlines. But now, when people used the word risk, he asked whose risk they meant. The board approved the next stage of reforms by a narrow vote. Carter Dynamics remained involved, but the contract hold stayed in place. Jordan had refused to release it based on promises. He wanted evidence. That evidence came 6 weeks later on a flight from Atlanta to Phoenix. B. An elderly black veteran named Samuel Price boarded with a cane and a small oxygen concentrator. His boarding pass assigned him an aisle seat near the front of the cabin. When he arrived, a younger passenger was sitting there. B. The young man looked annoyed when Samuel showed his ticket. I need the aisle, Samuel said. My leg does not bend well. The passenger rolled his eyes. There is an empty window seat. Just take that. B. A flight attendant named Monica Hayes approached. B. For a moment, the old pattern waited. The easier solution would have been to ask Samuel to move. He was quiet. He looked tired. He appeared less likely to complain. Monica looked at his boarding pass. Then she checked the other passenger's ticket. Sir, your seat is by the window, she said. The younger man sighed. It is only a seat. Monica held his gaze. Then it should not be difficult for you to sit in the one assigned to you. B. Samuel watched her carefully. He had spent most of his life preparing himself to be asked to accept less for the sake of keeping peace. He expected the familiar phrases. Helps us out. Do not make this harder. We are trying to depart on time. They never came. The younger passenger moved. Monica helped Samuel store his cane and made sure the oxygen tubing was clear of the aisle. Thank you, he said. B. You do not need to thank me for giving you the seat you purchased. Samuel smiled faintly. Sometimes you do. Monica understood the sadness beneath those words. A passenger across the aisle had recorded part of the exchange. B. The video reached Skybridge headquarters before the flight landed. Diane sent it to Jordan. No press release, just a clip. Jordan watched Monica check both tickets. He watched her speak calmly. B. He watched Samuel settle into the seat without humiliation. The moment looked ordinary. B. That was what made it powerful. Fairness should look ordinary. It should not require a famous name, a major contract, or a camera pointed in the right direction. Jordan replayed the video once. Then he called Thomas. I saw the flashes. Thomas, a Phoenix flight. Thomas sounded cautious. It was at least the contract hold. Jordan looked out the window of his office. Evening light covered the city in long bands of gold. B. One correct moment does not prove a system has changed. Thomas was silent. But it proves change is possible, Jordan added. That was not the answer Thomas had hoped for. It was better, because it was honest. The following month, Skybridge published its first independent accountability report. It included failures, disciplinary outcomes, and unresolved complaints. The company received criticism. It also received something it had not expected. Former passengers came forward, not only with anger, with stories. A blind traveler describes being treated as confused when he was not. A grandmother explained how fear had kept her from filing a complaint. A former employee admitted that she had stayed silent during an unfair removal. The report did not heal them, but it named what had happened. Sometimes healing began there. Not with forgetting, with being believed. Jordan attended the next Skybridge board meeting without cameras or reporters. Thomas handed him the updated reform plan. We are not finished, he said. Jordan read the first page. No, he replied. You are not. Thomas nodded. Neither man smiled. This was not a celebration. It was something more serious. A commitment. And for the first time, Skybridge was no longer asking how to recover from one public scandal. It was learning how to recognize the quieter harm that came before one. 1 year later, Jordan Carter walked through the main terminal of Washington Dulles International Airport without anyone stopping him. He wore the same kind of navy jacket, the same simple leather shoes, the same quiet confidence. Nothing about him announced that he had helped change one of the largest airlines in the country. That was exactly how he wanted it. Travelers hurried past with coffee cups, backpacks, and tired faces. A little boy laughed as he chased his father toward a moving walkway. An elderly couple studied a departure board together. Life moved with its familiar rhythm. Jordan paused near the first-class gate. A young gate agent greeted every passenger with the same smile. She checked each boarding pass before speaking. No assumptions, no shortcuts, no judgment, just the facts. Jordan watched for several minutes before walking closer. Good morning, the agent said. May I see your boarding pass? Jordan handed it over. She scanned it. Thank you, Mr. Carter. You are in seat 2A. Boarding will begin in about 10 minutes. She smiled warmly and handed it back. Nothing more, nothing less. Jordan smiled. Perfect. The young woman had no idea who he was. She had simply done her job. Nearby, Diane Parker stepped out from an office. She had been promoted several months earlier to Vice President of Customer Experience after leading the company's reforms. The title mattered less to her than the responsibility behind it. She walked over with an easy smile. You picked the busiest travel day of the week. Jordan laughed softly. The best time to see whether change survives pressure. Diane looked around the terminal. Complaints involving seat disputes have dropped dramatically. How dramatic? More than 70%. Passenger removal requests? Down by almost half. Police calls? Only when there is a genuine safety issue. Jordan nodded. Good. Diane hesitated. There is something else you should see. She led him toward another gate. A middle-aged man stood beside the boarding lane, visibly frustrated. His carry-on suitcase had been tagged incorrectly during check-in. Years earlier, Jordan knew exactly how this conversation might have unfolded. The passenger would have been told to step aside. His frustration would have been treated as the problem. The employee would have rushed the conversation. Instead, the gate supervisor approached calmly. Let's slow down, she said. She looked at the baggage tag. Then she checked the computer. Within a minute, she found the mistake. It belonged to the airline, not the passenger. I'm sorry, sir, she said. We made the error. We will fix it before you board. The man's shoulders relaxed. Thank you for checking. The supervisor smiled. You should never have to apologize for asking us to verify something. Jordan looked at Diane. Nobody recognized him. Nobody knew he was watching. That made the moment honest. A phone buzzed inside Diane's jacket. She smiled after reading the message. Rachel Kim has just been promoted to manager of cabin training. Jordan looked genuinely happy. She earned it. She did. Rachel had become one of the strongest voices inside the airline. New employees heard her story during orientation. Not because she had been perfect. B, because she admitted where fear had kept her silent, and because she chose differently afterward. Across the country, airlines had quietly begun adopting parts of Skybridge's new procedures. Verify first. B, escalate only when necessary. Separate disagreement from danger. Listen before judging. Several aviation conferences had invited Jordan to speak. He declined most of them. B, he preferred something smaller, something more personal. That afternoon, he accepted an invitation from a local community college where future aviation employees were graduating. The auditorium was modest. B, families filled the seats. Parents held flowers. Grandchildren waved from the back rows. Jordan stepped to the microphone. The room became still. He looked across hundreds of hopeful faces. Some would become pilots. B, some would become gate agents. Some would become flight attendants. Some would become airport police officers. B, every one of them would someday hold authority over another human being. He spoke slowly. People will remember how you made them feel long after they forget your name. The room stayed silent. He continued. B, most passengers will never remember the aircraft registration. They will not remember the boarding time. They may not even remember your face. But they will remember whether you believe them before you judge them. B, he paused. Authority is not proven by winning an argument. B, authority is proven by protecting someone's dignity, especially when it would be easier not to. Several students quietly nodded. Jordan looked toward the back row. An older man stood there with a cane. It was Samuel Price, B, the veteran from the Phoenix flight. He raised one hand in silent thanks. Jordan smiled back. No words were needed. After the ceremony ended, students gathered around Jordan. One young woman asked him what leadership meant. B, he answered without hesitation. B, leadership begins the moment you realize another person's dignity is your responsibility too. That evening, Jordan received final email from Thomas Reed. The subject line was simple. Contract approved. B, inside was only one sentence. Thank you for insisting that we become better before doing business together. Jordan closed the message. He looked out across the city as lights slowly filled the evening skyline. B, the contract mattered. The reforms mattered more. Somewhere, another passenger would board another airplane tomorrow. Maybe they would be elderly. B, maybe disabled. Maybe traveling alone. Maybe they would simply look different from everyone else. They would probably never know Jordan Carter's name. They would never know why an employee paused before making an assumption. They would never know why someone chose to verify instead of accuse. And that was the best ending Jordan could have hoped for. Real change is often invisible to the people it protects. B, he quietly turned off his office light and walked toward the door, knowing the greatest victories are rarely the loudest. They are the moments when an ordinary person is treated with ordinary respect because someone chose fairness over convenience. B, if this story reminded you that every person deserves dignity, no matter who they are or what they look like, please take a moment to like this video and subscribe for more stories that celebrate courage, compassion, and justice. And if you believe respect should never depend on status, leave these 3 words in the comments. Justice must win.